Here's everything I made from scratch to feed to the builders working on my house yesterday. Starting with fresh apple juice I made with the Windfall apples from my garden. I did a mixture of this sweet pink apple which is called Discovery and also cooking apples. Of course I saved the pulp because I want to experiment with it and make some kind of fruit leather. The juice was actually so nice, but it looks completely different to shop bought apple juice and I think the builders were a little bit scared. I'd made bread that morning but it went a little bit overbaked and so I made it into eggy bread. Adding in spring onions from the garden just because I'm really trying to use up my stash of spring onions. I have so many. I topped it with some crispy chili oil and it got demolished. I don't think the builders had had breakfast because they arrived so early. They definitely got sick of me offering them or tea or coffee, but I will take any excuse to feed people cake I've made from my garden produce. Right now I have such a glut of plums, so I batch cooked a load of cakes to try and store them in. I did 3 really simple plum upside down cakes. I also do this with apples, maybe mixing in some blackberries too, but you can do this with literally any fruit that needs to be used up. It freezes really well and I can pull it out whenever I need an emergency dessert. I also made some plum frangipane tart. One tart had the plums on top of the frangipane filling, the other the plums were underneath the frangipane. Both tasted great, but the tart with the plums on top looked the best. The problem is making cakes doesn't use up nearly enough plums, so if you've got any good plum recipes not including jam, please let me know in the comments. These builders know my husband and they are always seeing the lunches he gets at work. I just had to make them epic sandwiches too to keep my husband's street credit. It all started with a tomato sauce and I absolutely winged it from there. It was simply tomatoes, onion, basil and garlic blended and then sieved. I wasn't happy with the thickness, so I returned it to the pan and reduced it by half before storing. Meanwhile, I'd managed to get my hands on a point end beef brisket which I smoked for 8 hours. I followed all the instructions, I promise, every single one to the T, including wrapping it in a tea towel in a blanket for 2 hours to rest, but it was still so dry. I mean, it was edible, but my reputation was crashing around my ears and I could not serve that. I asked you guys for some advice on my Instagram story and you said bung it in the slow cooker with a load of liquid. I put in some good quality beef stock with the tomato sauce that I'd made and put it on high for a couple of hours. Whenever I slow cook meat, I always drain off the juices after it's finished and reduce it down on the hob with a knob of butter. It does take a little bit of time, but I promise it will take your sauce to the next level. Cheese and fresh jalapenos from the garden were melted on top, and I ended up going for a kind of birria taco vibe, but obviously the sandwich version, using that incredible sauce to dip the whole sandwich into. Needless to say, something that was going to be an absolute fail turned out to be a huge hit, although it was very messy to eat.